Hi, True Crime Grapevine fans. It's me, Patty Lee, your dyslexic armchair detective. I have made a few changes. This is our 41st episode. So if you've been around for a while, thank you. If you're new, hi, I'm Patty Lee. What I try to do is I watch all the true crime on multitudes of YouTube channels, as well as traditional mainstream media and newspaper articles about all the cases that everybody's talking about, so that I watch it all so you don't have to, because there is too much crime, not enough time. So that's what the True Crime Grapevine is for, to help you. So something new I have here, so I'm trying to have a little picture-in-picture. Thank you, Heather McDonald, hashtag Juicy Scoop, for giving me an alternative to, until I learn better about editing, I can just hopefully swipe and have a picture-in-picture that's a real TV set over my head. So this week, this episode is covering February 3rd through 13th. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you just a sampling, like a sommelier might just give you a little sip. Now, I have a bucket, but we're not going to spit into it, although some of these cases might make you want to spit. And then I'm going to, during this week, this is my plan anyways, release spotlight cases where I'm going to go further into the case. And because my background, I have a half of a doctorate, which is, if you know anything about getting a PhD, which, trust me, I didn't even when I started, which is kind of a crazy story, but it's done in two parts. One is all the coursework, and then days of testing and paper writing to get, then you pass all the coursework. And then you may go on and write a dissertation, which I started to do, and then COVID happened, so I am what they call ABD, which is all but dissertation. But it's in, my major was about cognition, educational psychology, which is about how people think, reason, problem solve, and motivation, which comes in real handy when we talk about crimes. So my focus in the spotlights is really going to be on critically thinking about these crimes, how they happen, how we can avoid being a victim, and a little bit of sleuthing using critical reasoning. So those will be coming out as separate spotlight cases, and they will be titled as part of episode 41, which is February 3rd through the 13th. So today I'm taping is Monday the 13th. If anything happens afternoon, you won't hear about it here because I'm filming. All right. So as you can see, I've got my little logo up here. That is what you would see in the circle when you look for my YouTube channel. I am just a YouTube channel, not a podcast right now, although I hope to do both. If you do like true crime and don't have all the time in the world to watch everything about it, or you're interested in learning more about, how people are motivated and how to be a better critical reasoner instead of just emotionally react to some of this news, I might be a channel you want to subscribe to, and it would be great if you would like this. Hit the little bell if you want notifications when I upload, which is going to be about once a week. I went live as my January resolution, and I went live every night. If you were part of the crew that watched afterwards, the replay crew, or if you were some of the people that I chatted with while we were going live every night, thank you very much. I loved it. It was a lot of work, and I just couldn't keep up with that. So hopefully these spotlight cases, and then I'll go live maybe once in a while. Let me know if you did enjoy those lives. Put that in the comments. All right, so the cases that we are going to be talking about today. We have the Patel Familicide, Lindsay Clancy case, which is another Familicide case, Nicola Bulley, and then this is a United Kingdom case, Lancaster, UK, but very interesting. Another one of the things I'm going to be doing is talking about patterns, and we can usually put these cases into a certain pattern, and this pattern is the missing mom case. Tyre Nichols. The pattern, unfortunate, one of the cases that deals with violence, especially violence against African Americans with police. It's a very weird and disturbing phenomenon. We will be talking more about that in the spotlight to that case. The Gabby Petito case has an update. We have, which would be a DV, I think, with some mental illness on the part of the perpetrator for that case, but we have an update on the civil case that the parents of Gabby are enacting in Moab, Utah. Updates, asterisk, because I'm not sure about the veracity, and we're going to talk about the GSR, not the gun residue testing GSR, but gossip, supposition, and rumors surrounding the Bryan Kohberger case, because there is a gag order in place. We'll be talking more about that. There was a legal filing we can talk about, but there's also lots of GSR going on. The Daybell Vallow case has an update because we're going to trial, people, in April. So there's an update on that. The Aidan Fucci slaying, this is a teenager on teenager. I call these cases kids killing kids case, also involving sort of domestic violence, not sort of. They weren't really in a domestic situation though. So kid on kid. He was 14 and she was 13. There was a pleading that took place in that case. The Murdaugh case we're going to talk a little bit about, that is in trial. And this has been the second week, and holy heck, craziness. Just like everything about the Murdaugh case is crazy. That's the South Carolina lawyer who's in trouble, deep trouble. This is his murder case, not the financial crimes, although it would be hard to tell the difference. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what's going to be happening this week, which is the West case is up for a hearing on the 16th, which is this Wednesday, Thursday? I think it's Wednesday. Thursday of this week. And then I'll have a little celebrity case update, which is the Rust Alec Baldwin update. And then at the very end, I'm just going to share my sources, and hopefully I'll be able to give you a little visual information as well of who I used and depended on a lot for really good verification this week. And I'll tell you why. Those are my favorite sources this week. I use a lot more than just those, but all right. The other thing that is I've always done since I started my channel, it's been almost 1 year, is I used to pair each case with a drink. Now I'm doing it per episode because I was getting a little under the weather. A little flu from all the wine. Too much wine, not enough time. We have a sparkling raspberry verde. It is a sweet wine, which has, as you can see, some bubbles. Why do we drink? Well, people, the situations that lead up to these crimes is enough to make anybody drink, in my opinion. Needless to say, let me just start out saying that all of these suspects that we're talking about, even those who have been arrested, are still innocent until proven guilty. We want to protect, as we'll be talking about some of these cases, the judicial system, because if we protect it for the worst of us, it's good for all of us. So even though we might not like what these people have allegedly done, what they're accused of doing, we still want them to have as fair of a trial, because if they're convicted, we want them to stay convicted. We don't want their convictions overturned. So that's really an important reason. It's not so much for them as individuals, although it is, but it's because they represent anybody who can be accused. And I use a phrase, burn the witch. Like the mob mentality of let's just burn the witch, let's just get the person. If you know anything about the witch trials in Salem, Massachusetts, one of my favorite places to go, you will know historically that all of them were not witches, as far as we know right now. There is no such thing as a witch, as far as we know right now. So, but they were killed for being witches, and a lot of their trials were based on just rumor, people being frightened, and it was a mob mentality. So that's why I say burn the witch. It's not a good thing, and we actually want to, even though we all have that, I call it Patty Pitchfork when I get that way, like this person did it, let's go get them. We want to try to use our frontal lobe, cognitive brain, higher level thinking to avoid the confirmation biases and other biases that happen in our thought processes when we start wanting just to go get the bad guy, which is a normal feeling. I don't want to act like it's not normal, but it can lead to really bad, not only outcomes, bad outcomes for innocent people often, and also it leads to really bad media. And when that's reinforced through clicks and views, you get really disgusting coverage, in my opinion. All right, so our first case 1. Everybody take a drink, because you're going to need it. Our first 2 cases actually involve they would fall under the same type of crime, which is familicide, which, as you can tell, side is to kill, and then familial. You might recognize that from the cake baker guy, My Familia. So you can kind of tell what that's going to be. As you can see behind me, you see the picture of Dr. Dharmesh. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. Dr. Dharmesh Patel. He is 41. He is from Pasadena, California. He is still, as far as I know right now, he is still an anesthesiologist. He's been an anesthesiologist for the past decade, 11, 12 years, in the greater Los Angeles area. 5 years ago, his wife, they had 1 child at the time. Now they have 2 children. They have a daughter and a son, 7-year-old daughter, 4-year-old little boy, moved into the neighborhood where they live in Pasadena, California, and the family said, the neighbors, long-term neighbors who have been there the whole time, said they give cookies. They're like great neighbors. Okay, so why am I telling you, and why is there a mugshot of Dr. Patel? Well, oops, sorry, I don't have the picture of it. There was a car crash, January 2nd. You may have heard of it because it was a Tesla. It went over this cliff off Highway 1 in California, a famous highway that goes all along the side of the ocean, the Pacific Ocean. They came out of this tunnel, they went over the side. No braking, no stopping. Over a almost 300-foot fall on a cliff called Devil's Slide. Now, this case is attempted familicide. The whole family plus himself. Why do I say attempted? Everybody lived. God, that's something to drink to. Everybody. All of them. As they went over the hill, a horrific crash. Down at the bottom, not into the water, right next to the water's edge. There was rescue people. A helicopter had to come there. The little boy and the daughter were both the little boy was in a child seat. The daughter was in a booster seat. The little boy basically was watched overnight observation, scratches. The little girl hurt worse. But she won't have lifelong injuries, they said. The person hurt the worst was the mother, but she was conscious upon, these people said, there's so many deaths on this. Obviously, it's called Devil's Slide. Lots of accidents happen there. This does not look like an accident. And the wife, conscious, she was the one hurt the worst. She is still hospitalized, and she will have a very long recovery. But she said to the responders, he did this. He intentionally did this. He tried to kill us. So in court, those are considered, I forget what they call, exclamations when people make passionate statements just without thinking. And they hold a lot of weight in court because you're not trying to think up a story. You're just saying exactly how you feel in the moment. So they had an idea right there. And he also, horrible injuries. He was in the hospital for a month. As soon as he was released from the hospital on January 30th, he was immediately taken into custody. I think it's San Mateo County, and he is in jail awaiting trial. So we're going to hear about this one. I'll talk more in the Spotlight case, but I did look up. The motive right now is unclear. I mean, he's a doctor. The motive is, I mean, we don't know. He doesn't seem to have a horrible temper. Does he have a brain tumor? I mean, what? He also was going over the edge. I mean, he didn't just do this to his wife and kids. So his trial, or at least pleadings, will be very interesting, and I'll tell you more in the Spotlight case. We'll hear more about that. So that is case 1. Case 2. I was not going to do case 2 because it, to me, it isn't a true crime, and it also is horribly depressing, and I didn't want to learn about it, but it's getting traction in the true crime world, and my mission is to tell you, like I said, there's too much crime and not enough time, so that's why I watch everything. So I will learn all the gross, dirty details about this, even if I don't want to, because that's the mission of this. So Lindsay Clancy is a 32-year-old labor and delivery nurse, midwife. She is a mother of 3, or was a mother of 3. So she still has an 8-month-old, maybe 9-month-old now, son. She had 2 older children in this past January. In late January, on the 24th, something horrific happened. She had sent her husband on some unusual errands, like to go get food, but further away than normal. And when he, and also a run to CVS. When he arrived back home, you know, he comes in the house shouting for her and the children. It's very quiet. He probably feels a draft. He goes upstairs. He can't get into their bedroom. He finally does. Their bedroom window is open. She's outside. He runs outside and he says, and she's still conscious but very hurt because she jumped out the window. Where are the children? And she says, in the basement. He goes immediately to the basement and tries to resuscitate and calls 911 for the 3 kids who had exercise bands around their necks. So 2 of the children could not be resuscitated at all, the older 2. The baby, thank goodness, was able to be resuscitated and is alive, as far as I know right now, still. And so she obviously is taken to the hospital as well. So the crime familicide often includes suicide, like it's the whole family. It's a little different from a family annihilator because those tend to be men and they don't kill themselves. In a familicide, it's like they take out the whole family, including themselves. So all, their spouse, the children. So this falls into this category, and specifically into a postpartum psychosis category. And people are very upset about this case. She has pled not guilty from her hospital bed, but she was admitted. And I'll tell you more in the Spotlight case about the research in this case and exactly what I think. But she had been admitted for major depression in January for 5 days prior to this incident, which is actually a major distinguishing factor in postpartum familicides. So we will talk about, but it's really important that if anybody has had a baby within the last year, and they don't have to be a newborn baby, under 18 months old is what the statistics are for this sort of crime. And I'm saying crime because it does involve psychosis, which doesn't mean you're, when people think insanity, they think like, woo, and like the person can't think straight. psychosis is weird. It's not what we think. In schizophrenia, often people can plan things. The shooter in the Aurora, Colorado Batman movie was suffering from schizophrenia. And he was able to plan this whole thing. It's a very weird, to a typically developing person. We all understand depression, but to plan something out and actually carry through with it, like, how can they do that? Well, if they're hearing command delusions, you can still act normal and sort of act like you're hiding something because the voices are telling you, you got to do this, you got to keep it secret, it's not logical because it's an illness, but it's also really scary, and they're not in control. And so but there's signs of this postpartum psychosis, often major depression, hospitalizations, suicide attempts beforehand. So at that point, you can't leave them alone. Only 4%, I believe the statistics are, actually end in the death of a child, but that's still horrific. And we don't want anybody. We think of Andrea Yates' case. So I'll talk more about that. It's a horrific case. Right now, I think the authorities are questioning, they have charged her with attempted murder and murder. Manslaughter, I believe, which is like you do it in a fit of passion. It's not like completely premeditated and on purpose. But I think they might change that, looking more into the actual medical records and understanding the background. But right now she is charged, and so she has pled not guilty by reason of insanity. As far as I know, we might learn way more about the case, right, when the evidence comes out. But that's a horrific one. All right. Case 3. Case 3 is Nikki Bulley. She is a 45-year-old mom, and for all intent purposes, married to a man named Paul. It's her partner. Overseas, I don't know if you guys are aware, the culture is a little bit different regarding getting married and having children. It's not as sort of puritanical as the United States, which is weird because we have a lot of other things that don't seem to be very puritanical. But there is this Calvinistic Protestant ethic that comes into the United States from its inception, before it was even the United States. And our culture is a little bit different. But this woman has been with this man for over, I believe, 12 years. He is not a suspect. Boy, and everybody, of course, when there's a missing mom, and of course, you do look at the partner first, right? Number one, suspect. But in this case, they had CC, closed circuit TV security outside of their house. And he was working at home the whole time, and he did not leave. So he is not and he was called at home, found at home when she was missing. She went missing in January. I believe it was the 27th, yes. She was walking her dog. She had taken, and they have the CCTV. She got up, she took the kids to school, and was taking the dog for a walk, and she did this almost every single day. She would drop the kids off at school, leave, I think she left the car parked there, would take her dog Willow, Springer Spaniel, walk down this path from the school over a bridge into this gated area in Italy. I don't know about Italy, but in Ireland and the UK, England, they have fields that are cordoned off, but you can get through gates. Through this one's called Kissing Gate, which allows you can graze animals. Animals can't get out, but people can go around and get in. So she went through this gated little Kissing Gate into this area where there was a river. Wire is the river that goes all along the boundary of this park. There was a lower field and an upper field in this area in which she walked with a walking path. Many people walked there. She took her dog, like I said, every day. It seemed as if she would take off Willow's harness as they entered that area. So she would walk maybe to a bench, take off the harness, carry the harness with her, and then she would walk. And every morning she would have a phone call meeting with her work on Teams, which is what she did that day. She was on that phone call and walking, but she would mute it and turn off the camera so that she could basically just listen, and if they asked her opinion about something. She's a mortgage, what'd they call it? Not mortgage representative. She sold mortgages and helped people get them in like I think sort of the business side of watching what happens to the mortgage money. So she, like a mortgage holding company, I believe, that was out of town. So she was working remotely, walking her dog like she did every day. She was seen in the lower field and then in the upper field. She wasn't seen after the upper field, and they had a like a surveillance camera that was pointed at the field, which just happened to be broken. Not great. So the last time she was physically seen was at the upper field at about 9:10. And then by 9:20, her phone is laid down on this bench and then turns off. Or just, I think it's there and it's in that position until 9:30, in which the call is off, but she never logs off her work call. The work call ends at 9:30. So sometime at 9:20, they can tell the phone was placed down. Somebody comes along and finds the dog, Willow, she hasn't been harnessed yet. The harness is next to the bench, but on the floor, on the ground. Willow is running between the gate and the bench. Now, the first thing, somebody saw the dog. This is a very small town. I think it's St. Michael's was the town. That's what the school part was in. The woman is an older woman who recognized sort of the dog, but she tied it up with twine, so I guess it didn't get too far away. Didn't know what the person was. She sort of recognized the dog in the phone, but she left the phone alone. She went home. She had an appointment, and then she told her daughter-in-law. The daughter-in-law recognized the description of Willow, and they call the school, I believe, and the school calls Paul. So by almost 11 o'clock in the afternoon, between 10:30 and 11, now everybody knows the alarm has been rung that Nicola is missing. Again, she does this every day. So every day that she's not working from home, she takes the kids to school and then walks her dog at this time, every single day. The police start looking in the river, and they spent weeks looking. They said maybe they think the dog had a ball and the ball ran. Anyways, all of this, they even called in special forces, kind of our version of who shall not be named, who found Kylie Rodney. They didn't find anything. The river isn't that fast flowing. It is winter though, but there's no sign that she went in the water, but they think basically this is a very safe town. There's only people that know each other. What else could it be? So in the spotlight, we'll talk about what else it could be. And we all know what else it could be, right? We see these stories all the time, and it's not just in the United States. It happens everywhere. So Nicola Bulley is 45, but she doesn't look what you think 45. She looks to me more like what you would consider somebody being 35. She's trim, athletic. She has long blonde hair that she was wearing in a ponytail. She was wearing a black winter coat, green wellies, rubber boots, green socks, black tight pants with it, another black undershirt. Missing completely. So we'll talk about, and you can see in the picture, it looks like, if you can see up here, it looks like she's got a blue coat. Excuse me. That's not right. Looks like a blue coat, but it's black. Can you see that? Yeah, I think you can see that. So it's a mystery. It's still a mystery. There have been a couple, now that the river has not turned up anything in 2 weeks, almost 3 weeks now. They're beginning to consider other things. Our next case, after the Nicola Bulley case, our next case is case 4. What is in case 4? It is, this is a case, again, so after my every single night live and a number of other things I'll talk about in the spotlight cases that sort of dragged me down a little bit, I took a little bit of a break. So now I'm 10 days behind the last time I did an update, and I missed the Tyre Nichols case. Oh, you guys, again, what? Human nature, even though it changes, it doesn't change. There is a certain amount of truism that when you give people absolute authority, they will act without any consciousness, any morality. Absolute authority does corrupt, absolutely. And this is seen, you know, historically, if you look at the emperors, if you look at any of the monarchs, right? And if you look at somebody like Hitler, when you give, and his SS troops, which this sort of reminds me of. Why? So this happened in Memphis, Tennessee. This happened on January 7th. Tyre Nichols was coming home from work and was pulled over by this crew. This crew of 5 police people, they're known as a Scorpion Squad. They were a special squad started to deal with the uptick in violence in Memphis. They were, now this isn't for sure, sorry. Let me just asterisk this little part. I heard and cannot confirm, so just let me tell you, this is that GSR. This is gossip, supposition, and a rumor, but that these people didn't even have to go on any transmitted calls. Like there wasn't a crime called in. They were supposed to go out and look for crimes, especially felonies, assault, rapes, murders, robberies. They were the special squad that was supposed to be out there on foot looking around. Now, if you, like me, start thinking, okay, so they didn't respond to calls, they're just looking for crime. Like a vigilante group? Because that's what it kind of sounds like. It was a city-sponsored vigilante squad. Again, that's my opinion. And I haven't received confirmation that exactly that's what that was. But let me just tell you, this man was doing nothing but coming home from work when he was pulled over by these people. They hassled him. He was within 100 yards, 2 minutes of his house. Hassled him. He was like trying to respond. And then they grabbed, according to the body cam, which is pretty good reference, but grabbed him out of the car. He tried to get away, beat the shit out of him. He tries to run, tase him, kick him, beat him some more. I mean, all the officers also, the first responding ones, all African American as well, which shouldn't really surprise me, but it kind of does, because I'm used to thinking of these acts as, especially in the South, as like racial vigilante justice from like Jim Crow times that are somehow coming back everywhere, not just in the South. And there's this, tension between the community, especially African Americans and other minorities, and it typically seems, but not always, white officers. Well, in this case, no. These were all African American black officers, but it's the authority they had that, absolute authority corrupts absolutely. These people, we're not sure exactly why they chose to do this, but after this incident, after Tyre Nichols was beaten into an inch of his life, then thrown in, handcuffed with one of the officer's personal handcuffs, thrown into a car to wait even longer 20 minutes before they rendered any medical care. And then it wasn't really, you know, nobody's rushing. Nobody, like the EMTs come, the fire department EMTs. In the end, everybody who showed up, another cop who was white showed up and is on body cam saying, I hope they stomp his ass. I mean, this is the worst of the worst type of police violence. And I can only think, why were they given free rein? Who thought this was a good idea? They're like, oh, but we had a higher number of arrests. I'm sure you did, because they just arrest whatever. And the things they were supposed to be stopping, they did almost every single one of those. Assault, murder. That's what they did. So, and I don't think Tyre was probably their first victim. Just saying. Oh, they seized, and if you've watched any, there is a great last week with John Oliver about police seizing money when they're allowed to basically act with extrajudicial, meaning outside of the judicial system, and they just seize. Oh, we're going to seize that money because you shouldn't have it because it's probably from criminal activity. It was supposed to be like thinking drug dealers, and if they went up and down a highway, like I live near 75, goes all the way from Michigan, all the way to Florida. And it's known for human trafficking and drug trafficking because it goes all the way into, you can get from Michigan into Canada and then all the way to Florida where you can receive goods from other places. Goods being like drugs or humans. So stopping cars and taking large, seizing money is kind of like trying to tell the drug dealers don't come this way, I guess, is how it started. But police just seizing money from people can get a little crazy. Number one, if they're seizing cash, they said within a year, just over a year, these people seized $130,000 worth of cash in Memphis. Well, if it's cash, how do we know it was 130? You know what I mean? That has been historically the problem. Again, giving anybody absolute power to do whatever they want. Now, the scuttlebutt of this whole thing is that one of the guys did take with his private cell phone a picture of Tyre before he died he died 2 days later, 3 days later, on January 10th. But while he was dying, not getting medical aid, instead, this guy took a picture of him with his cell phone and sent it to a number of people, 5 people, I believe, including a female person. And the GSR, the gossip, supposition, and rumor about that, is that he was seeing this one woman who Tyre had dated. So was that the whole reason Tyre was pulled over? Did they wait for him to get near home? Did this guy who just happened to be part of the Scorpion crew go, hey, I've got some justice to dispense. It's just my whole supposition. I'm not saying that's what happened. He, as well as the other officers and then responding people, they're all going to, they're being held. They've been arrested. They will have their day in court, and they are innocent until proven guilty. But man, do not watch the tape unless you don't believe in police violence, because then you need to watch it because it is disgusting. Anyways, so we'll discuss more of that in the Spotlight case, but let me just tell you, it was a case I didn't really want to cover, kind of like the Clancy case, because it is the worst of human nature, and we're supposed to trust the police. I want to trust the police. I am white and middle class and grew up in a rural setting, so I was taught the police are my friends, and he had no reason not to believe that. But these cases, you just can't ignore that. It's not justice for all of us if some of us don't have it, because all we have to do is live in a society that decides that, if you're okay with like, yeah, but these are drug dealers, or these are kids who are doing bad things, and they should be, who cares if they get beat up a little bit, or they're sex workers or drug dealers or whatever you think is bad people. The thing is, all they have to decide is the next group. Well, then all women. I mean, it can happen. It has happened historically where things go backwards. You don't want to believe it, but it is true. So this whole thing, the fact that it happened in 2022 or 23, that police can just pull somebody over for no reason, beat the shit out of them, kill them. I mean, thank God they wear body cams. Thank God. It's really unbelievable that this is still going on. All right. Case 5. Speaking of unbelievable and that it's still going on. All right, so this is a civil case, not a criminal case, although it seems to have involved a crime, but the crime didn't get called. Nobody got in trouble. It was a crime that wasn't called a crime by, again, unfortunately, police officers who did not do what the law stated. So if you know anything about the Petito laundry case, the Laundries and Gabby's father lived in Florida. Gabby dated and then was engaged to Bryan Laundrie, Gabby Petito, who they were doing van life, especially during the COVID times. They were traveling and she was vlogging about it, I guess. And Gabby, there is an element, I believe, of mental illness on Bryan's part, or developing mental illness, I believe, personally, according to some of the signs. I'll get into it on the spotlight. But needless to say, this young girl was very vulnerable because she was far away from home and she was with a either sick person or just vile, sick, morally person who appears and was seen by people who called 911. This guy who is beating her basically and stealing her van and acting like he was going to leave her in a city, Moab, Utah, in which she knew no one. Okay, she gets in the van by clawing her way in because she's obviously, as anybody would be, fearful as you know what, to get, who wants to be left in a town without wheels that you don't know anybody and your boyfriend's taken off, your fiance in your car that you're living in, basically, and he's like, yeah, F you. So she gets in, they get pulled over because then he's speeding and they're entering a park. So the Moab police pull over them, and somehow in the discussion, Bryan has scratches because she had to claw her way into the van. And that seems to be what they notice. What they don't notice until Gabby is sitting in this back of the vehicle. And from the body cam, you can't really see. She's angled so that you see mostly her right side. But you can see at different times a little bit her left side. But as she's sitting in the vehicle, he says, well, I see that you've got a scratch on your arm. And I don't know if he said in the side of your face. And she is acting just like every single abused woman you ever saw on a Lifetime movie, if you haven't seen real life ones. And police learn about this. In fact, the police goes back to his car to say what you should do during a domestic violence situation. And he's reading the law and he says, yeah, somebody's got to go to jail basically because, well, in these cases, he says the person who's abused will play it off like they're not abused. I'm saying it differently than he did, but basically he explains to this other officer sitting there, yeah, the whole thing is though that, and then somebody gets killed, and then, you could have stopped it, but they then decide, no, this is more of a lover spat. They really love each other. Nobody's really in danger here. In the meantime, Gabby Petito is acting just like it's almost a classic. Somebody should use this in teaching because she is responding like a classically abused person. She is all afraid the other person who abused her, as we know now, who eventually kills her, Bryan, she's like, no, I hit him first. I made him do it. It's my fault. Which meant by the law, the letter of the law, then, okay, you're the abuser, Gabby. You have to be arrested. And her family is suing the Moab police, saying they did not follow the law. Gabby should have been arrested. And if she was arrested, who would she have had to call? Her parents. And then her parents would have been aware of the situation and probably could have saved her life. But instead, they made an extrajudicial judgment. On the side of the road, they were judge, jury, prosecution, everything. Okay, well, we don't want to arrest her, basically, because she's a woman, even though she didn't act like the aggressor. The aggressor was off laughing with the police, if you watch that video. Anyways, her parents have civilly sued the Moab, Utah police, which I talked about in a previous episode. Now they have shown this picture that you can see behind me. Let me make it bigger. And you can see, look at Gabby's face. She's wearing the same brown shirt that she was wearing the day of the incident. And it kind of looks as if she's in a bathroom that has like see how it has where you can stop. I don't know if she just took this of herself, if she sent it to a friend, or if she posted it on Instagram, or if she sent this to her. I don't think she sent it to her parents. But the parents are saying, look, people, seriously, look at her face. I mean, she was scraped enough that she has blood. She obviously went like this, and it looks like there was a wipe. But they saw that scrape. The officer said, like, oh, you have a scrape here. It obviously bled more. She obviously documented it. And this is why that law was written. And that is why police don't get to decide. They are not a prosecutor. They are not a judge. They don't get to decide. They are police officers. Here's the law. You broke it. Someone's being arrested. That's why somebody goes to jail if there's a domestic violence call. So don't call if you don't want someone to go to jail. Someone's going to jail. Maybe both people. So they did not do their jobs. It's on the body cam. Personally, I feel like they should have been fired, and or at least reprimanded severely, and should be having something taken out of their pay each week given to the Gabby Petito Foundation. They missed all the signs, and then they decided. It was their decision to to decide the law instead of following the law. That is problematic. We cannot have people doing that. That's not how the system works. And why doesn't it work that way? Because of situations like this. So the parents are civilly, meaning it's not criminal, they can only get money. And why do you do this? It's not that money will bring back Gabby. It's that if you take enough money from any entity, maybe it will make some systemic change. Because systemic change is very hard. And what makes systemic change? Losing your green, man. That is the biggest way to make an entity change its ways. Unfortunately. Not completely, though, because we've been suing police about the other case for, centuries? And it still happens. Maybe we're not charging it. Maybe the cases aren't enough. So anyways, that was just a picture that was added to the civil case and entered, I believe, as evidence. We'll see what happens in that case. I'm thinking the parents and their lawyers are trying to pressure the Moab. They don't really want to go to court. They want them to change, say, we were wrong, we're sorry, and we will make some differences. Instead, they're like, no, we did everything right. I don't know, man. I'm not going to Utah ever right now. I'm not going to Idaho because it seems like they're they're very pro whatever the authority says. And over-authoritarianism is verging on fascism, and that leads us down a very bad road if you follow history. All right, that was the fifth case. Case 6. Oh, GSR, people. This is a GSR report for you. What do I mean by that? Well, we've got gossip, we've got supposition, and we've got rumor. Everybody, take a drink and meet our friend. Using it very loosely. Bryan Kohberger, presumed innocent until guilty. Bryan's got a very unfortunate background. If he is innocent and somehow being set up, boy, did they choose the right patsy for this one, because he has all the background factors to be a serial killer that got caught after his first kill. In my opinion, that's just my supposition. And that's kind of where everybody is at, but instead of then going, okay, but let's what's the evidence, and I mean, he still could have been set up. I mean, I'm like 98% no way, but I'm 2%, but I could be persuaded if you had evidence. I mean, because there's some weird things, like about timing, and the timing was really quick. Anyways, what we're talking about this week is, so since the beginning of this, families handle tragedies differently, and the Gonsalves family, especially Steve Gonsalves, the father, but also the sister, Olivia, and the mom sometimes, they've been very vocal, like super vocal. Like they can't shut up about the case. And I understand I think they want to, this is just my personal opinion, stay angry because anger is easier to deal with than grief, than just the depressing, empty hole that has been ripped through their family's life. So if they stay angry and keep giving interviews and keep talking, and that takes up space, so that, because your brain can only think about one thing at a time. I'll talk about that more in the spotlight. There's good techniques to get rid of anxiety and other things by, because you can only think of one thing at a time. I think the Gonsalves family is more comfortable just constantly spewing to the media about whatever. And because this case is so many people want to hear about this case, that we all click on whatever it is. So it's kind of a vicious cycle of they stay angry and I think they feel productive that they're keeping their daughter's memory alive and getting this guy. But in the process, they can be hurting the case against this guy. And the dad did that on a number of occasions to make a very impactful point that kept his daughter's story in the media. It's almost like if they keep the story alive, they keep Kaylee alive. I think psychologically that might be what's happening, because I don't think the dad wants to hurt the case. I don't think he's trying to screw up the case. I don't think he's that selfish. I think they're trying to keep this alive because it keeps Kaylee alive by talking about it. But the constant, he said, like how they were found dead together in a room when no one had known that. He made a couple of, there was another, he was saying how they were killed first, which now that's what the authorities think. He was being told certain things, and then he was telling the media, even though I am sure he was asked, please don't do this. It hurts, it lets whoever did this know what we know, and it hurts the case eventually when it gets into court. So he eventually, after there was an arrest, he quieted down a little bit, and he hired a lawyer, Shannon Gray, and they continued to talk about, once there was an arrest, Bryan, and what they think about Bryan, and what they think about, let me just tell you, again, I get why he's doing it, but he needs to be protected. Shannon Gray, I don't know what his motivation is. I guess it puts his name out there maybe. I don't ascribe, I don't know what I think about him, quite honestly, but because his client wants to talk, which I addressed why I think he does and why I understand that, he has, they kept talking. There was a gag order on the case put by the judge, the magistrate judge, and then she said, look, I'm going to amend it, and I'm including all witnesses, families, victims, and their spokespeople, lawyers in this, because she needs to lock it down so that the jury pool isn't ruined. And needless to say, there's still sources. And now the sources, is the source the Gonsalves family? Is it Shannon Gray? We don't know. It's just sources are saying all kinds of things, like about, and I'll address this in the spotlight, but not all of it makes complete sense, about how something about his job security as a TA he was being fired, but that happened after the murders occurred, so I don't know why you would be talking about that. All it does is see, he's crazy, everybody knows. It's character assassination, which I'm not saying, I don't know how much you can wreck this guy's character more than what already has been. But if there's going to be a jury picked, we need to shut up so that you don't continuously poison the jury pool for anybody. So like I said, for the worst of us, perhaps he is the worst of us. It seems like there's a lot of evidence, but it protects all of us. Because what if you're innocent and you're somehow accused of a horrific crime? Do you want everybody to be able to tell all the jurors all the time how you suck, how you lost your job, even though it was after the murders? But it's because everybody knows you're a horrible person. I mean, the things that he's been accused of doing, the people have come out of the woodwork to talk about his past. It's not like he's got a shining reputation anyways, but Shannon Gray wants to talk. And so he filed a motion to either clarify or get rid of the gag order. And then it was responded to by, today I believe the state responded, as well as the defendant's lawyers responded. And everybody's like, oh my God, Bryan's got a new lawyer, because it wasn't Ann Taylor that responded. But it was somebody who works for the public defender's office, and that's who's representing Bryan. He didn't hire a lawyer. He didn't hire Ann Taylor. The public defender's office of, and it's not Latah County because they didn't have somebody who was death penalty qualified to sit first chair, so they had to go the next county over. And that public defender's office, they are the ones responding. And again, in the Spotlight case, I'll go into it further, but let's just say, if you pray. If you just believe in good vibes, send good vibes to the Gonsalves and all the families. The Chapin, there's also rumors about the Chapin family wants, oh my gosh, more about the roommate. And I'm not even getting into that because that is tampering with the witness. And it's also, if that girl kills herself because of this bullshit, sorry, I have to say it, oh my God, it makes me so angry. And they're like, oh, well, even, it's not just the Gonsalves, even Ethan's Chafin's family wants to. And I'm like, they said it was his sister-in-law. And I was like, but they only had triplets. Oh, so I think the dad had a prior family, and it is the wife married to, I believe, Ethan's much older brother who was not raised with him. And these people haven't been involved in the ceremonies. Not that they don't feel this, but I'm like, it's like Bryan Kohberger's aunt from Marriage, who's no longer in the family divorce. All these gentry people want to come in and give their 2 cents and listen to me and get their moment, 15 minutes of fame. And it's sick because, especially regarding the roommate, you don't get to question her. And any organization, news organization that puts it out is witness tampering. Yes, Ashley Banfield, I'm looking at you in News Nation. It's witness tampering to even discuss it in terms of, well, we want to know more about what did she really see? Like, what, do you think she's in league with Bryan Kohberger? That's bullshit, and you know it. And why don't you leave that child alone? And she is a child. Your brain's not even done until you're 26, physically maturing. And again, you want to see Patty Pitchfork come out? You're seeing it. I like to remain calm and reasonable and logical, but when it comes to hurting a child, which DM is, and that's why I'm not saying her name, because leave that. Number one, she's a witness, and she's the only living witness. So besides the dog, who can't, so if you want to prosecute this case, stop it. I know we all want to know more. In June 26th, if nobody F's around too much, we will have a hearing, and it will be to see if it will go to trial, which of course it will, but we'll get more information. Then we can talk more. But in the meantime, we're hurting people who have already been hurt. And the people who are doing it for clicks and views are sickos. I know how the media works, and I know it's all about money, and I know they have to make a job, and I know Ashley Banfield isn't choosing her own stories. Again, Ashley, I'm sure you're being told, but why don't you tell the people that are telling you what to do that they are asking you to witness tamper? And I'd make sure I signed off on, okay, I'll do this story under duress, just letting you know, because Ashley Banfield's a lawyer. She should know witness tampering. And don't say it's not witness tampering, but I'm just asking a question. We've seen that. I am telling you guys, I think all of true crime, they better watch it, because everybody's going to get shut down. Because what's going to happen is they're going to start making laws. I think, if you guys remember anything about smoking, banning smoking indoors for restaurants and bars, it started state by state. In fact, even county by county, because that's how the law system works. It's called home rule. You start with the smallest entity, and as long as it doesn't violate a larger entity, like a city, municipality can make a law as long as it doesn't violate a state or federal law, and a state can make a law as long as it doesn't violate the federal law. That's how that works. So I think Idaho's on its way to being like, they're going to start making like zero media allowance of a case before it starts. That's what I think. Sorry, back to Bryan. That's what I think is going to happen if we don't watch it. So again, I was a kindergarten teacher at a certain point, and I have 3 kids. And let me just tell you, if you, Idaho is clamping down on media. And we've had the lawyer, and other people read the Idaho's, in these filings, they're discussing what can be discussed. And I'm telling you, when decisions are made that, yes, it's okay to close down these people, and yes, it's okay to have a media gag on, which I think is going to happen. There will be a judgment that it's okay to have a media gag on victims' families and their lawyers. It'll get tighter and tighter, and that sets precedent. Once there's a decision, then somebody else in that same position can go, well, Judge, in Latah County, they had this case, and they made that, and pretty soon, like, Idaho's going to go to, like, no media before a trial. And it's only going to be because people couldn't shut up with small kids, with kindergarten. Like, it's people, if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. It's not just child behavior management that talks like you can't do that. You're just reinforcing them if you allow it. That's the law. That's how the law sort of works. Like, and I'm telling you, if Idaho does it, then another state will do it. And Steve Reich, or Scott Reich on Crime Talk, he's a defense attorney. And the lawyer, Peter Tragos, also a defense attorney. Boy, they don't like these. They're very upset by this. Defense attorneys can't talk. But I am telling you, it's only because certain people are acting crazy, and the internet, the way it is, with the mob mentality, the burn the witch, that to get good trials and to get a jury pool that's not tainted, they have to start closing things down. And it'll start state by state until it gets bigger. So if we want to learn about things before the actual case is coming out, I'm telling you, we better not take part in the bad behavior, is all I'm saying. That's my opinion. Sorry. I got up on my soapbox there for a second. All right, case 7 to talk about. Oh, the Daybell Vallow case. We are going to trial, people, in April. Guarantee it. I guarantee, if you're old enough to get that reference. That was a Cajun cook used to. I guarantee. It is enough to make you drink. So Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow. First we'll talk about Chad's motions, and then we'll talk about Lori's. Chad's lawyer, John Pryor, he's a private attorney. He's not a public defender paid by the state, so he does not have to be officially death qualified to try a death penalty case. I believe that's how the law works. And he continuously files for severance, because Chad's case, it would be much easier if he can point the finger at Lori, and he wants more time. I think he wants more time to sever. I think this whole strategy is to sever the cases. So he has filed again for severance, and he has filed for more time for his DNA expert, and he needs more time for his other experts, and he needs more time. What he needs is for Chad not to have gotten into this mess with Lori. That's my opinion. I don't think Judge Boyce is going to sever the cases. We have co-conspirators charged with the very same things. Her alibi includes him. So it really is the very same thing. And they're already moving this case that's going to take 10 weeks to Ada County. they're not going to have a 20-week trial, first of all, and also not only to hear it twice again, it gives the chance that perhaps there'll be a different verdict in each case for the same crime for co-conspirators, but also the time and money that it would take for the community, and the community pays for all that travel and time. I don't think it's happening. Lori Vallow of the Lori Vallow-Daybell case. Lori's lawyers are brighter. They are death qualified. She's got a chair 1 and a chair 2. They are trying their best. They have filed valiantly that the case should be dismissed because her right to speedy trial has been violated. And Lori Hellis on Children of Darkness and Light, a lawyer, has talked. She's writing a book about this case. She's talked a lot about this. But here's the deal. They're not going to dismiss these charges. And don't worry, even if they do, she's going right to Arizona where she's got murder charges. Excuse me, for Charles Vallow. So she's not getting out of any murder charges. This woman has wreaked havoc along numerous state lines with numerous people. But she asked for a speedy trial, which is a great strategy. It puts the prosecution on their back feet, trying to get ready. They got to hurry up, and it's hard because they don't have to just prove it they have to prove it without a reasonable doubt, and it takes time to build a case so there's no holes for reasonable doubt, which is why people ask for speedy trial. Unfortunately, so the Idaho law states, like most states have this within 6 months. You can't just hold somebody indefinitely for no reason. She's been in jail for over 1,000 days. Now, that started in Hawaii because she wouldn't say where her kids were. That lasted for a while, and then they dropped those charges when they charged her with murdering her children, in which within, I don't even know how long after that, she couldn't even plead to it because immediately, I'm crazy, conveniently went into, to get mentally, because they don't have reason by insanity in Idaho. They only have mental, if you're not mentally competent to stand trial, you have to go to be restored, at which time, however long that is, then you will go on trial. So she was almost not quite a year being restored to mental competency, and that was in April of 2022, and then within months, her lawyer had to be reassigned because it was Mark Means who had also represented Chad, and I don't know, seemed to have a really weird, just my opinion, weird relationship with Lori that maybe not inappropriate, maybe in love with her. I don't know. And then she was assigned a public defender, but she was still incompetent, and so the public defender, Archibald, couldn't work with her. I think that was also, Mark Means stayed on as second chair at that point. Then Mark Means was taken off in August 22. And then I think that was 2021. By the next April, she was found competent, and Archibald had that second chair, the other guy, whose name escapes me now. Then the clock started again. She was arraigned. Then by the next August, she was or October, maybe she's incompetent again. They had a trial date set that was within her 6 months, but that had to be put off because she had to be reevaluated. Now, that time they found out, no, she wasn't mentally incompetent and could stand trial. But that had taken up so much time. Now, the Judge Boyce, he's from the Fremont County, the Rexburg area, but they have to keep working with the Ada County, which is Boise, the biggest city in Idaho, work with their court system to get the time and space in a courtroom, even though everybody from Fremont County is going over to Ada County, they still need the courtroom space. And so every time they switch the trial date, it screws up. I mean, it's 10 weeks, which is a long time. Most murder trials, I believe, are a week to 2 weeks. So going 10 weeks is a crazy amount of time. A lot of expense, a lot of effort, and then having to arrange using this courtroom for a whole different county. So they had to redo that, and then it turned from January 9th, I believe, and then it had to be rescheduled for this date, which is now 40 days or 36 days after when it would have been her 6 months. Now, the Idaho law does have exceptions to it, like if there's good reason. There's lots of good reasons. One, they have to, it's already, the venue's been changed to a busier county where they have to try to find space for this trial to occur. It's going to be 10 weeks long. That causes problems. And then on top of that, you had all these, maybe I'm crazy, maybe I'm not, stops and starts, which isn't like her fault, but it did slow down that process, which, asked for rescheduling. I say, no, we're going in April. We're having this trial. And I say, Boyce isn't going to give her what she wants. Oh, Lori. Oh, Lori Vallow. You're going to have to go to the portal. Okay. Case number 8. Trying to get through these guys. Aidan Fucci, who in 2021, unalived, as they say on YouTube, Trysten Bailey, a friend, acquaintance. She had snuck out of the house, and she was like this really good girl. She was a cheerleader. She was, which doesn't make you a good girl if you know cheerleaders. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But she was like a good student. She was in middle school. She had been at a cheerleading competition all day, and she just snuck out to go to somebody's house. Aidan was at that friend's house. And then I don't know what conspired to, like, I'll walk you home, or do you want to go for a walk? And then we'll go home. But she left with Aidan. They are seen on CCTV going down his street further to a cul-de-sac where there was a retention pond and some woods. Now, apparently he'd been telling people he wanted to kill somebody. I don't know why nobody didn't say anything about that. He stabbed her, unalived her in the woods, and then he's seen on TV running back. His mom tried to clean out his pants from blood. That was caught on their home surveillance. Anyways, instead of going to trial, that was coming up, they were getting ready, he pulled the plug and said, no, I will plead guilty. And there was way too much evidence that he did this. So, saves everybody time and money, saves the parents from listening to all that horrible evidence. So we will be talking next about Aidan Fucci when he's sentenced. He was tried as an adult because of the heinous nature of his crime, and this is Florida. Florida's kind of like Texas. They'd kill you if they can. But because of his age at the time he committed the crime, which was he was 14, he was not eligible for the death penalty. So the sentencing will happen. He will likely spend his life in prison, I'm assuming, or at least most of it. And it's really sad. That beautiful girl, here, let's just put her up there, Trysten Bailey, look how cute she is, lost her life. All because she wanted to go just get out of the house. I mean, she was like one of those really, not overscheduled, but like very, go to school, go to gymnastics, go to cheerleading. Like, so she went out for some fun one night, didn't tell her mom where it was. Oh, and it was Mother's Day she was found. Isn't that lovely? Excuse me, I think they found, I'm not sure if they found her on Mother's Day. Yeah, I think it was. She was killed Saturday night into that Sunday morning. So it was after midnight when she was unalived. And so it was Mother's Day, and then they found her the next day. Which is just horrific. And like I said, pray for her parents, for her mom and dad. It's just unbelievable. All right, case 9 is from South Cackalack. Can you see who it is up there? Ooh, that looks mean, right? That's Alex Murdaugh. If you saw his name printed, it would look like Alex Murdaugh, if you were a Yankee like me. But it's Alec, they would say, with an accent. Murdaugh. It sounds like. I'm overpronouncing it. If you basically say Alec Murdaugh, it's like saying Alex Murdaugh, but you're saying it with this accent from the Low Country. Alex, he has a murder trial going on. It has been going on for 2 weeks. What you may have noticed if you're watching the trial is that they let in all the financial crimes that he took part in, which are crazy numerous and really show him to be a low-down scoundrel who would basically sell out his mom for money, it looks like. And so it's less of a murder trial and more of a character assassination. Did he do it? I personally think he was involved because there's all this money missing from his supposed drug use. but he wasn't constantly, I don't know. Supposedly he spent like $10 million for Oxy, but was also still a lawyer, still did all this family stuff, did stuff on the farm, ran errands for his parents. I mean, I know you can be a drug user and not be whatever, but $10 million, I don't know. He stole a bunch of money from clients, and he did lead a sort of lavish lifestyle, but I mean, that was millions. Then he's got the drug millions. There's money missing and unexplained aspects to this. I listened to all of Mandy Matney's Murdaugh Murders. Now, I think if you listen to Murdaugh Murders, she started that podcast right when the murders occurred, but she had been looking into the Murdaugh family and the Good Old Boy network that supported his family in the Low Country since the Mallory Beach accident, which was 2 years prior to that. And if you consider Paul's crime of being a drunk driver in a boat, killing one of his passengers when the boat ran into a piling, and how the family tried to come in and clean up Paul's mess and even try to frame another one of the people on the boat, or at least create doubt that Paul was driving at the exact time. Even going as far as they went to the hospital. And this is all evidence that's been entered in. I can see how Mandy and Liz Farrell, her co-journalist, writer, and Will, who owns Fitz News, I can see how already they would believe the worst of him and everything. But she even had an episode called Jackpot, which I suggest you look up on the Murdaugh Murders podcast playlist. It's called Jackpot. And she gives she's an excellent journalist, and she tells the whole story of the family's background, going back to the great-great-grandfather with like rum running, like back in the days of Prohibition, and then his grandfather, I believe, or great-grandfather, was involved in this Jackpot, which was a marijuana case of drug running, and now we know Alex, with his cousin Eddie, was doing something with Oxy. I think he got involved with organized crime, personally, because the murders, to me, this is just my personal opinion, nobody has proved this in court, hasn't been entered into any evidence, but blowing someone's brains out so that they're left right at their feet for somebody to find, and then Maggie was hunted down like a dog, knocked down with a boot print on her body, and then shot once from far away and then right in the back of the head. That to me says mob hit, organized crime. I don't know, but I am willing to be, from everything that we know about Alex Murdaugh, he is lazy. He's a nepo baby, nepotism. But he loved his family. I 100% could see him falling into organized crime to make a buck, and then just getting further and further into it. And then he, knowing all this financial stuff was coming out, was going to flip to get a way sweeter deal in federal prison and do his time like that. And I think somebody decided to give him a little message that he was not going to do that. And how'd they do that? You kill two people, make sure he can't say whatever about it. Why can't he say whatever about it? Because Buster was left alive. That's what I think. I think Buster was the insurance policy for whoever wants Alec to go down for everything. And Mandy Matney and everybody who trusts her, which she's very trustworthy because her journalism on the beach case and this whole thing is impeccable. And she's got the goods. All his financial crimes, 100%. But the murders, I think she is helping if someone did set him up, because I can't see also the time that he had to do it and clean everything up like a pro and not leave any blood anywhere in his truck. Where's his clothes? Where's the guns? The guns were stolen. One of them before, like 2 different guns, all in 20 minutes. And if it is organized crime, they worked this out perfectly, because all you need is someone telling a very good story to everybody, And I followed Mandy Matney's everything and watched all of the episodes. I mean, and now the evidence into this trial, all the financial crimes, yeah, he's a shit. I mean, he's a criminal. He's a criminal. And he will spend the rest of his life anyway, because he's got 99 or 100 counts of financial misdeeds, and what he did was horrible. On the other hand, I don't think he killed his family, but at this point, I mean, the thing is, live by the sword, die by the sword. If he got involved in organized crime, once you're in, people, you don't get out. And you can't just make a deal and flip, because, you know, they have insurance policies too. And right now, I think that this also, organized crime also explains, where did all the money go? Why did he not have cameras at Moselle? Maybe because he was doing, Moselle, as Mandy Matney's jackpot thing explains, is perfectly situated. And he got it like from $1 from his other friend. He bought it for $1 or something crazy. It had an airfield there. Somebody definitely, like, you wouldn't want to put cameras anywhere near the kennels or the hangar to watch the criminals come in and out with their product. That doesn't make a lot of sense. So Mandy Matney completely convinced me that there was something shady. There's also this jellyfish deal. There was something with drugs going on with Alec and cousin Eddie. And I think Alec was going to flip. And somebody decided that he wasn't. And then I think he wanted SLED to look for the murderers, like, without saying, look, I'm involved in this shit. I mean, he was being told, keep your mouth shut. Like, that was his warning. We're serious now. And so this is why I don't think he could have pulled off Paul and Maggie, because he's like, okay, well, if it looks like I'm being shot at, they'll think they're trying to kill all the Murdaughs, and then, okay, that'll be cool. Then they'll look for the real guy without me. I won't be saying anything. And then he's like, then his story fell apart because it was lame. Because if you listen to Mandy Matney's episode about it, it was lame. It wasn't even a good excuse. So if he couldn't even think of an excuse why he was being shot at by the side of the road, like someone's killing me too. If he set that up so stupidly and badly, and then had to, suddenly he changes his story and, oh no, I was committing suicide. That's the ticket. I mean, or does it make sense that he was trying to get SLED to look for somebody without actually saying, you need to look for these people because they are after me, but they're going to kill Buster, so I can't really tell you. No. He was convinced after his wife and kid were killed, I think, to be like, okay, well, I'll try to do this, and it didn't work out because he's not that bright. And then then they said to him, you better shut the F up, and you better tell them, you tried to kill yourself for the money or something. He's like, yeah, okay. Yeah, nobody else is involved. It's just me doing this. I mean, it was so stupid. Somebody who did that stupid thing is not the person who can do a 20-minute murder, do a murder with 2 different guns, get rid of everything, all the blood, all the gore, all the guns. Really? The guy who did the side of the road shooting is not the guy who did that's 2 different MOs, in my opinion. All right. So, will Alex be found guilty? Yes. Why? Because Alex is reaping what he sowed. He was part of a judicial system, the good old boy network, where he got whatever he wanted in court because of who he was, and now he's going to go down in that same court because of who he was. So, I don't think he did it. I don't think he did that, but he did enough in other places. They're going to find him guilty. That's what I think. All right, we'll find out more. But if you're watching it for a murder case, what you're hearing is a financial crimes case, and you got screwed because you screwed people over, and that's down low country justice, baby. All right. Our last case. Case 10. We have the case that is coming up this week is the West case. We are going to be finding out about Trezell West and Jacqueline West on the 16th. They are accused of unaliving two of their adopted children. They had 6 children altogether in California City. They made a phone call on December 21st. this is them, as you can see here. There's Trezell. They're wearing masks because obviously they were, it was during COVID. This is just in December of 2021 that they said their two youngest were out back, had disappeared. They couldn't find them. And eventually, we never found the bodies. We don't know where Orrin and Orson West, or their given names were Sincere and Classic. We don't know where they are. We do know they were 3 and 4. Apparently, they are being charged not only with the deaths, they're manslaughter and then involuntary manslaughter. So it looks like one of the boys died and then they killed the other one in a, that perhaps the other child was going to tell. I don't know why, but one of their charges is also that they influenced a minor to assist in hiding the crime. So they don't see any of their other children, their 2 bio children and their 2 other adopted kids. Those children have been removed and they have a no contact order because if they tried to influence them once, obviously one of them is a witness, if not all of them. So we will be hearing about their case going to trial. It's a no body case, but apparently there's enough information. So I'll be doing a spotlight probably next week about their case, but I just wanted to let you know, if you're interested, that it was coming up. All right, so this, I do have the Rust case to talk about Alec Baldwin being indicted. There's been some interesting things. I'll do a little spotlight on that. I'll just tell you, Alec Baldwin, along with the armorist, was indicted in New Mexico for the unintentional involuntary manslaughter of Hylana Hutchins, who was the director. And my whole thing is, how were there live rounds on this? There weren't supposed to be any live rounds on the set. And the armorist was a young woman. I think she was 24 or 25. Her father was, though, a very well-known Hollywood armorist, the guy who handles guns. And Alec Baldwin was trying to do things on the cheap. It was during COVID. People were very angry with him. There was a lot of dissension on the set. And it appears as if someone decided to make a point that the set wasn't safe by bringing in live rounds. Who brought in live rounds and who put them in that gun? We don't know. Officially, the armorist is in charge of that, right? So if you don't like the Nepo babies and you don't like the Baldwin producer / star of the show because he's making you work too long and you think it's a crappy set and you don't want to be there anymore, what might you do? Anyways, so he has been indicted. They tried to get the sentencing that they put in the indictment was an enhanced sentencing clause for over 5 years, but just this week, Alec Baldwin's lawyers pointed out that different sentencing enhancement was changed after the crime had been committed, so it doesn't apply. And so everybody's like, ooh, you made an elementary mistake. But whatever. I mean, he's a big star. New Mexico's a conservative state. Alec Baldwin has politically made many very liberal statements. So he's getting all... I don't think he's going to get a very fair shake. I don't know, if you're a liberal filmmaker, especially if you're doing things on the cheap, don't do it in New Mexico or any other conservative state, because they will go after you. I mean, I can see him being sued like civilly by the people, I guess. I mean, maybe the set wasn't the safest, and his set insurance, I guess, would handle that. But him as an individual, involuntary manslaughter, he was brandishing a gun. No, they were doing a scene. There were not supposed to be live rounds. And the fact, why should he check the gun? He's got like 2 other people that should have checked it before. And one of those people, as we know, put in live rounds. Somebody along the way. All right, this is the end of episode 40. So I'm going to come a little close so I can turn this so you can see maybe better the actual... Oh, you know what? I can bring you really close. Okay. All right. So these are my resources for episode 40 that I've mentioned. I wanted to let you know. First is, if you can see, really big there, there's Peter Tragos. He's the lawyer you know, and this is what his website looks like. Can you see that? It's called The Lawyer You Know, right there, so you can see it. Looks like this, blue, The Lawyer You Know. He's also on Twitter. Here's Crime Talk with Scott Reich. There's Scott himself. Where is he? Here, let's talk about it. He's a conservative defense lawyer from Colorado. I don't always agree with everything he says, but he's a good attorney and he gives good advice. Or excuse me, he doesn't give legal advice. None of the lawyers do. He commentates, and I mentioned him in this episode, so I wanted to let you know. There's Mandy Matney and Liz Farrell of the Murdaugh's podcast. That's Murdaugh Murders podcast, and you can find them on YouTube. If you can see, look for the it's like gray and it says Murdaugh Murders is the little icon. Then we have Duty Ron. Duty Ron is a retired police officer. He has a CSI retired guy who also he's not really retired. He's retired from the New York Police Department, but he is still working as a consultant at Wallace. And it's Crime Time with Duty Ron. You can find him at Duty Ron if you can see that on YouTube. He has great experts that talk about all these cases, and I forget which case I mentioned him in. He talking about the Idaho 4 case, talking a lot about forensics. He has a lot of forensic experts. Very worthwhile channel. And then we have Chris McDonough, at the interview room. There's Chris, the interview room. He has been covering the Bryan Kohberger Idaho 4 case and recognized the same similarities between Bryan Kohberger and BTK that I did. He had the daughter of BTK on talking about it, mentioning some of the same things I mentioned. It wasn't that big of a reach, understanding who he worked under cognitively. I made that connection very early on, but Chris actually had the connections to bring her on and had a couple of group experts, including Ann Burgess, talk about it. Go look at those videos. Very informative about motive and sort of why things may have happened in the Idaho 4 case. Really interesting. And then in the Nicola Bulley case, the only channel that's really covering it fully is, and she's also covered the Clancy case, I believe, is Grisla K. And she's a South African who lives in the Netherlands. Grizzly True Crime is her channel. And she's done so much work on the Nicola Bulley case. So go follow her. That is all I have for you for my sources. That was episode 41, covering February 3rd through February 13th today. Bye.